In today's video, I'm going to be answering the question, is it still a good time to buy gold and silver in 2026? Today is January 24th, 2026, and this is the Gold Silver Bulls channel. So I'm going to be giving you guys, if you're a beginner, the whole spiel, the whole scoop of what's going on with geopolitics, prices, the economics of everything. So if you are literally brand new to understanding gold and silver, why should I invest my money into gold and silver? Why is it actually worth it? And are prices too high today? And is it even worth it? Are the prices going to drop, or are they going to keep going up? We're going to literally talk about so much stuff in today's video that by the end of this, I hope you will be able to come to a much better conclusion of whether or not it's a good idea for you to be investing your money into gold and into silver in 2026. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So to get started, yesterday was January 23rd, which was a Friday, and it was the first day in human history where we've seen silver prices actually hit over $100 an ounce. And then we were literally super close for gold to hitting $5,000 an ounce. So it was a historic Friday on January 23rd, 2026. So yeah, I know if you're a beginner looking from the outside in and you haven't actually started investing, this could look intimidating to you. But I promise you, by the end of this video, you will be just ready to go to the local coin shop and getting yourself some gold and silver. So let's get into the next slide. So silver and gold are doing crazy numbers right now. You can just see the percentages of growth, 7% in one day. That's insane for your money. So why prices are high, and I'm going to go through a handful of these slides of why are the prices of gold and silver so high right now? What's the reason? What are the factors? So Goldman Sachs, as we know, is a central bank, raises 2026 end gold price forecast to over $5,400 an ounce. So Goldman Sachs, with their conservative prediction, is forecasting gold to hit $5,400 an ounce. We're only $400 away from that, and I believe the week prior to last week, so about 2 weeks ago, or at least a week ago, there was a span where gold literally went from 4,600 to almost 5,000. So it literally went up $400 within the week. So that could literally happen like next week, let's just say, for example, with how quickly gold prices and silver prices are going up. So I think Goldman Sachs forecast is very, very conservative, and we could see prices go up way higher than just $5,400 for the year. But still, the fact that they're saying it's going to go up even more is proof in the pudding, right? Donald Trump, the money man, right? The president. Trump says, a strong dollar sounds good, but you make a hell of a lot more money with a weaker dollar. So what does that say? We're going to get into this a lot with de-dollarization and the weakening of our money in our bank accounts, right? I've got so much money just chilling in the bank that shouldn't be there, and I wish I had invested in gold and silver much sooner. And it's just going to be a whole big thing in today's video. But if Donald Trump, the president, who is a multi-billionaire, is saying you make a hell of a lot more money when you invest, right, in a weak dollar, then guess what happens? A weak dollar ultimately means a strong gold and silver price. So guess what happens? As somebody who's rich and a billionaire who also owns, I'm sure, millions upon millions of dollars worth of silver and gold, he benefits directly from having a weak US dollar. Why prices are high again, okay? Gold will be the primary hedge and performance driver in 2026, says Ernest Hoffman, the publisher of this, or the author of this article. Silver could top out between $135 and $309 an ounce. This is the Bank of America's Widmer says. So Widmer said silver may appeal more to investors willing to take higher risks for extra upside, and noted that the current gold-silver ratio of around 59, which this was obviously a couple weeks ago, is at 59. Today it's at 49, I believe. silver could still outperform gold. He cited the historical ratio low of 32 in 2011 as implying a silver price high of $135, while the 1980 low of 14 in the ratio suggested a silver price of $309 per ounce. So if you end up using the 1980s gold to silver ratio of a 14 to 1, then that means silver can go up to $309 based on the current prices of gold, which that would be insane. And I would trade all my silver for gold when that time happens, but we'll see what happens when that time comes. Russia's central bank to acquire silver reserves. So Russia and China are also acquiring silver reserves. Russia's draft federal budget for the coming year includes plans for the nation's central bank to continue adding gold, platinum, and palladium reserves and acquire silver for the first time. So very interesting how Russia has not really cared so much about silver, and all of a sudden silver is like a critical mineral that they want to start building up reserves in. Very interesting to note about silver, but also they're continuing to build on gold, platinum, and palladium. Now we get into China. As of January 1st this year, so a couple of weeks ago, China announced restrictions on silver exports. So pretty much they're tightening the nozzle on how much silver they're going to be exporting outside of the country, which ultimately means that China is also trying to hoard as much silver as possible because they also see the price of silver rising because the demand is so ridiculously high, right? And you can see here in the middle, global player, China is the country with the second largest silver output globally, second only to Mexico, right? And you can see on the bottom left, Elon Musk, who the owner of Tesla and SpaceX. This is not good, he says about silver. Silver is needed in many industrial processes, including his Teslas and the batteries for those Teslas and the solar panels, if they even have solar panels. I'm not a big electric car guy, but the silver is extremely important to Elon Musk, electric vehicles, and his business. So if the price of silver continues to go up, guess what is also going to go up in price? Tesla, batteries, and solar panels, things of that nature. So China has its grip as the second largest silver output globally. They've tightened their exports on silver, and now there's a lot more restrictions on who gets the silver, and they're going to be keeping a lot as well. The Shanghai silver price in dollars is currently almost $112 an ounce. So as we just saw, the current price in America is $103 an ounce. In Shanghai, China, to get the same ounce of silver, it costs almost $112, so about a $9 premium. So that also says, hey, silver price currently is undervalued and it's going to keep on going up because they're charging $112 for an ounce of silver in Shanghai. China is using silver as an economic weapon, similarly to what I was just saying, what that means for investors and prices. So China controls around 70% of the silver that big tech, AI, and solar power desperately need. Beijing is locking the gates. China is restricting silver exports because it needs the metal and has figured out something America hasn't. So every single country in the world right now, the United States, Russia, China, many countries see that are like the big players, right? The big powers of the world, China, Russia, the US, right? These countries all understand that to keep their control, to keep their power, they need the critical minerals that are going to be of the future, that aid in the industrial revolution of the future. And silver is one of those precious metals that is going to be used in the future to help maintain that country's control and power over the other countries in the world. So again, China understands that. That's why they're restricting the exports. Silver was just designated a critical mineral by the US government. Bada bing, bada boom, talk about cha-ching, cha-ching, right? I mean, that alone will make silver price go up. But it also just proves everything that I just said about China and Russia. Silver is a critical mineral. It always technically has been, but now with the increase of technology, solar panels, right? EV, electric cars, the batteries for the cars, there's so I'm going to get into it later in this video, but there's so many reasons why silver should have always been a critical mineral, but now as of November 2025, the United States listed it as a critical mineral. So that is very big news for silver. Now, this is important. The total deficit, this is the supply and demand of silver over the past handful of years. So if you can see in 2021, that is basically where we started to get a massive deficit in millions of ounces every single year. So you can see on the top right, total deficit is just around 800 million ounces of silver from 2020 to 2025, meaning we are using way more silver than we actually have in supply. So the demand for silver is so high and we don't have enough in supply. There's not enough silver stored. So we're scrambling to figure out where are we going to get all this silver. So that's why it's important for China to restrict the world on how much silver they can export, and that's why the prices keeps going up. It's simple supply and demand, right? When there's very little supply, right, and the demand shoots up because everyone's trying to compete with each other about who's got the next big technological advancements in the industry, right? Cars, EV, solar panels, whatever it is, military. The only thing that can go up is price. So if there's more demand than there is supply, price has to go up. And that is exactly what we're seeing today with why silver and gold are going up in price. And this is just proof in the pudding as well with the actual numbers of the silver supply and demand. You can see 2020 through 2025, the supply and demand ratio has been totally off. We've been using so much more silver than there is actually supply. So the demand has skyrocketed, and it's only going to continue to skyrocket as we move forward, and I'll get into that in just a second. Now, building a new silver mine is a long-term process. So the only way to build the supply of silver now, you need to have silver mines. But the issue is, it takes between 7, 10, upwards of 20 years, right, until they can finally start first production of mining to get the silver out of the ground, right? From permitting, from financing, to discovering the mining sites, construction of the mining with all the materials and the machinery, that can take between 7, 10, upwards of 20 years, right? That's a very long time. So if you were to say that we started in 2020, right? That's 2020 to now 2026. That's about 5 to 6 years. So we still have, what, another 5 to 10 years, give or take, before the mines are actually built and in production. But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more. Samsung prepays mine for 2 years supply. Samsung, I believe this mine is in, where is it? Mexico? Durango, Mexico. Samsung paid $7 million prepaid so that they can get first dibs on all of the silver that this mine produces for the first 2 years. So Samsung paid this mine $7 million prepaid in Durango, Mexico, so that they could get the first 2 years of silver out of that mine. So Samsung is also investing in silver mines because why? Samsung makes what? TVs, laptops, all types of technologies that need silver, right? So why is this important? And why is this so critical? 5, 10, 15, 20 years to create a mine to mine silver. The issue is silver you can't actually mine for silver directly. And what I mean by that is silver is a byproduct of copper, zinc, and lead. So ultimately, what you're actually mining for is copper, zinc, and lead. And I'm sure there's others as well. But the big point here is silver's a byproduct, right? Silver is a byproduct. You would need to, silver, you only get like 30% of like the actual output of the mining. 30% is actually silver, while the other 70% is copper, zinc, or lead. So there's so much excess that you don't really need the copper, the zinc, the lead in order to get silver, which proves that when you're mining for silver, because it's a byproduct and not the actual product you're mining for, like you can with gold, it takes a very long time to get a lot of that silver. So that's why it's important to know also how difficult it is to mine silver. So, why are prices high? Silver is used in solar panels. And as we know, over the past, 10 plus years, we've been putting solar panels on our rooftops to save from electricity. We've been putting them in our cars, on our yards, for our house, all types of reasons why solar panels are amazing. And silver is a very good conductor of electricity for these solar panels. They're also great. Silver is also used in electric vehicles, many electronics, like I said, your phone, your cell phone, iPad, computer, TVs, medical technologies, AI data centers, which is a massive one as well. Here in 2026 with ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, the craze around data centers to run these AI systems, they're going to be gigantic, ginormous warehouses just loaded with data centers with silver inside them to be able to run constantly, right? And you need silver for this particular industry because of how hot the computers are going to be getting when they're, transferring all the data. And then, of course, military equipment is very important for, silver. So with silver, we have solar photovoltaics, which is basically solar panels, right? Solar energy. Solar specific demand alone accounted for 17% of total silver demand in 2024, compared to just 5.6% in 2015. So it literally tripled. The demand for silver with solar panels tripled in the past, 10 years, give or take, growing at an annual rate of just under 13%. China also increased its solar capacity by 45% in 2004. So solar panels are becoming ever increasingly more important to a country, to its people, and the demand for solar panels is just on the rise. Same thing with electric vehicles, same thing with consumer electronics, phones, tablets, wearables, AI-related devices all require silver components, and of course, 5G networks. The global rollout of 5G infrastructure depends heavily on silver's electrical conductivity. So it's very important for all of these things. You need silver for these things. So just another little screenshot here of what silver is actually used for. Mainly 60% of the silver is used for industrial, about 18% for jewelry, less than 5% for silverware, about 17% for coins and bars, which is normally for investments, right? Buying coins and bars. And then, of course, photography, which is only 2%. Now, within the industrial aspect, that 58.1%, we've got electrical and electronics, solar, brazing and soldiers, and other industrial. Okay, and on the bottom it says industrial applications account for 59% of global silver demand, with solar emerging as the fastest growing segment at 13% annual growth since 2015. Now, this is why it's so important that we get silver specifically for these technologies, for this for the industry, the industrial. Silver is the most conductive metal on the periodic table. It's so conductive that it's over 100% in conductivity. It is a 105% in conductivity. It's even better than 100%. So silver is literally the most conductive element on the periodic table. And it's also one of the cheapest, but it is better than copper, right? Even though copper is cheaper, silver is the better alternative. And there is nothing on the elemental table that is like silver. So nothing can actually replace silver. None of the elements are similar enough to silver that they can actually replace silver. And that's why silver is going up in price so quickly and so drastically. And the demand for all the tech that needs it is also, raising up the price. Now, let's move into the historical chart of silver. So this is, as a beginner, it's important to know, has the price of gold, has the price of silver gone up majority of the time throughout history? This is a chart that clearly shows that silver has been in a bull run for the past 100 years, all the way down from $1 to now $103. We are still in this bullish trend, which is very apparent, and I believe it's only going to continue to keep shooting up even higher throughout the generations. I remember I looked up over the past 20 to 30 years, silver on average went up about 7 to 8% every single year on average. So the appreciation of silver was actually very similar to real estate, right? Real estate and gold were kind of like neck and neck between 9 and 11% annually. Silver was just below that at around 7 to 8% in annual appreciation, which, if you look at the inflation rate, which is supposed to be quote unquote 3%, which we all know is a lie, 8% seems very good to put your money into something that's giving you an 8% return. Now, this is the adjusted for inflation chart with silver, and in 1980, the Hunt brothers hiked up the price of silver and it quickly shot back down. But I have a very strong belief, and I think I'm not the only one that agrees with that silver is going to surpass the $145 mark within the next handful of months, I'd say. We're only $42 away, so it could be relatively quick. Sometime this year, I definitely think it's going to break that 145. And then you can also see here, in 1980, like I just showed you, it was 145. The percentage of growth was over 400%. Insane. Last year, on the far right of the chart, silver went up by 150%. So a very large amount. And currently, it's only been 3 weeks, a little more than 3 weeks in 2026. We're already up roughly 44%. And again, I still believe the price of silver is going to keep on going up. Now, gold and silver, guess what? Are now the number 1 and number 2 ranked top assets by market cap. I remember when I first started buying silver in like October of 2025, silver was in like 6th or 7th place under Microsoft and Apple. And then guess what? The demand skyrocketed and silver shot right into 2nd place. And now the market cap is over 1 trillion more than Nvidia in 3rd place. So gold and silver in their rightful places at ranking number 1 and 2 as the top assets by market cap. So further proof gold and silver are the biggest safe havens for preserving wealth. Now, interest rates are also a very good indicator of whether or not the price of gold and silver will go up or go down. So this is the most recent FedWatch, the CME FedWatch tool of whether the Fed is going to cut rates again in the next meeting. So I believe it's next week we have the meeting. There is a 4.4% chance that the Fed is going to cut rates, and there's a 95.6% chance they're going to keep rates the exact same. And this is very important because typically when the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates or prints money, gold and silver and precious metals tend to go up in price. And I will get into charts in just a second to show you that. But when they hike interest rates, right? When rates go up from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, gold and silver technically should drop in price, or at least level out and stay stable. So for the next handful of months, we are actually presuming that the Federal Reserve isn't going to cut rates at least until May of this year, when the new Fed chair gets taken into place. So this is, of course, another chart from the Fed's website that in 2026, we could potentially see one, maybe two more rate cuts, according to the website as of right now. And then they plan to keep that monetary policy roughly the same over the next 2 to 3 years. But again, this is very important for us to know. The new Fed chair pick will be expected in days, and this was published literally today. So we all know Jerome Powell, he's expected to leave the Federal Reserve. His contract is expired in May. Donald Trump has 2 or 3 different people that he wants to be the next Fed chair. And those people, whoever he picks or whoever gets chosen, are on Donald Trump's side with cutting interest rates. Remember how Donald Trump's always saying, we're going to get mortgage rates, we're going to get interest rates super duper low in my term. Well, whoever becomes the next Fed chair, they are most likely going to continue to cut rates more than what Jerome Powell had planned for this year. So for 2026, they're going to cut rates even more depending on who this next Fed chair is chosen, right? And they're going to be, closely related to Donald Trump. And of course, they're not supposed to do what the president says because they're supposed to be like a private entity. But we all know if they're friends with Donald Trump, they're going to end up cutting rates anyway, which will be, of course, good for prices of gold and silver. Now, this is the big thing that you guys should be really paying attention to, and something that I missed for the longest time, especially because I've been in real estate for nearly 6 years as a realtor, selling millions of dollars worth of real estate, and I never really knew this. I never paid attention to precious metals, to gold or silver, even though I paid attention to interest rates and what the Fed was doing every single week. So it's crazy to think about it. But you can clearly see I have in the red boxes, you can see that the Fed is hiking rates, meaning that they're increasing the Fed funds rate. So everything, taking out a loan becomes more expensive. They increase the interest rate. When they increase the interest rate, you can see how gold and silver was pretty much stagnant. It was very flat for the longest time. And then in September of 2024, the Fed decided it was time to start opening up the money printer again, right? And start cutting interest rates. And what happened when the Fed started cutting interest rates in the green color, right? We can see on gold, it skyrocketed, shot up about 65% last year alone. And then silver, about 150% last year alone. You can just see the parabolic rise from silver and then the consistent rise with gold, right? When rates are cut by the Federal Reserve, most likely prices of gold and silver go up. Same thing with palladium, same thing with platinum. So this is very important for you to know as a beginner who's learning about gold and silver and whether you should invest. Now, this is also very important with interest rates. In 2020, when the C word happened, the Federal Reserve, within a 2-week period in March of 2020, they cut interest rates by 1.5%. That interest rate cut made silver so undervalued that the gold to silver ratio hit an all-time high of 120 to 1, meaning it took 120 ounces of silver would be equivalent to 1 ounce of gold. Today, that is roughly 48 to 49. So 48 ounces of silver gets you 1 ounce of gold today. But when in 2020, when the world was going through chaos, right? In March of 2020, the gold to silver ratio was at 120, right? 2.5 times higher. So that would have been the absolute craziest, best time to get your hands on some silver. Now, another thing that's very important, the US Mint, who produces, right, coins and sells these coins to consumers. They restructured the price of their presidential coins, and honestly, I think most of their government minted silver coins. So as we can see on the bottom here, Woodrow Wilson, Theodore Roosevelt, George Washington, these 1 ounce coins are costing $164 per coin. Now, mind you, what is the current price of silver? $103. So how in the world are they going to price 1 ounce silver $61 more than the spot price of silver? And then read here on the right. The typical premium for a government minted silver coin, which would include the US presidential themed coins, is generally between $4 to $10 per ounce over the spot silver price, with premiums often ranging from 8 to 25% depending on factors like demand, scarcity, and finish. The US Mint is scrambling because the price of silver is skyrocketing so quickly. They had no choice but to halt sales for about a week or two, and then they came back and they restructured the pricing of the presidential mints. So now we're literally seeing these presidential coins are $164 when the spot price of silver is only $103. And if presidential coins are only supposed to be 8 to 25% or $4 to $10 over spot price, that would put these coins at roughly $115 per ounce. But the fact that they're 164 is also proof in the pudding that, guess what? Silver is undervalued, and the United States Mint is also seeing the price of silver go up even further in the future, right? Later this year, or at least in the foreseeable future, we're seeing $164 silver. Which, if that's the logic, they're projecting, at least in the near future, silver to hit roughly $150, $155 per ounce based on the $4 to $10 per ounce premium. Now, this is something that may be triggering to many people that watch this video, maybe not, but for me, as someone who believes in Jesus, who believes in the Bible, who believes in God, my faith lies heavily on what God has done because He's created everything in the world. He's created us, He's created the world, He's created everything that we see. Now, I've read the Bible front to back, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it wasn't until I started reading the Bible a second time as of recent that things started to click a little bit more the second time I started reading. Now, gold and silver in the Bible. The Bible mentions gold and silver over 700 times, symbolizing wealth, purity, and divine value throughout both the Old and New Testament. Gold appears over 400 times, and silver is mentioned over, let's say, 300 times. They're frequently used to describe temple decorations, treasures and riches, and currency. And I think I'm going to get into this in a different video as well, but the fact that it's mentioned in the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve, when there was no other human beings on earth, just Adam and Eve, husband and wife alone in the garden, and God said that there is gold in the garden. If there's no stores, there's no one selling or buying anything, but God said that there is gold in the garden. Why would God say that there is gold in the garden if gold and silver are not meant to be attached to God's people in our abundance the way that God wants it to be for us? If we are created in God's image and God's likeness, and gold was in the garden with a husband and wife, and there were no stores for them to buy or sell anything, the fact that gold is listed in the book of Genesis alone is very good proof that we should all have gold, have silver, because God said that we are meant to be abundant because we are made in God's image and his likeness as well. So this is like a faith-based reason why I believe in gold and silver tremendously, and it's honestly the reason that got me to research gold and silver in the first place, to start investing in it. So hopefully that, helps with you as well, if you believe as well. So this is also very important because it kind of ties in with the Bible a little bit. The average gold to silver ratio over the past 5,000 years has varied significantly, but has generally trended between 10 to 15 in 1, meaning 10 silver ounces to 1 gold ounce, right? For much of the ancient and medieval history, when it was often fixed by governments. Now, in the modern era, in the post-1970s, that has typically been between 50 to 1 and 80 to 1. So we can even see here on the ancient civilizations in ancient Egypt, the ratio was as low as 2.5 to 1 around 3200 BCE, and the Roman Empire often fixed it around 12 to 1. So in ancient Egypt, 2.5 ounces of silver could get you 1 ounce of gold. Today, the ratio is at a 48 to 1. And because historically it has been that low before, and the demand is absolutely going crazy, I think it can reach maybe not 2.5 to 1, but potentially even 15 to 1 in the foreseeable future. Now, let's get into something a little bit different. Google Trends data. The terms, how do I buy silver, how do I buy gold? When people are on Google and they're searching, how do I buy silver, how do I buy gold? Look at what's been going on since 2004 to the present. We can clearly see that from 2025, just look on the far right of the chart, you can see the absolute monstrous spike for gold and silver for people just searching on Google, how do I buy silver? How do I buy gold? So a lot of people are beginning to get really heavily in their decisiveness on deciding, should I buy gold and silver? And if I did want to, how do I do it? So the trend is trending up and not down. So that's also a big indicator of where the demand is for gold and silver. Now, if you wanted to buy gold and silver bullion, which bullion is just another word for, gold and silver bars or gold and silver coins, which are pure, like pure coins, pure bars, just go on Google Maps and just search local coin shops near me. And typically they'll look like this. They'll look like a coin shop just like this. They'll say, we buy gold, we buy silver. We all see these locally, and just find a bunch of these that are local near you. Go into each one of them, buy the cheapest silver coin that you can buy from each shop just to get an understanding of what their premiums are. And then whichever shop you go to like 5 different coin shops, and then whichever one gives you the cheapest premium, whoever was the nicest owner or the nicest, employee at the shop, and they gave you the best premium, the cheapest cost to get 1 ounce of silver or 1 ounce of gold, keep going to them. Those are going to be your guys for the future. And just keep working with them, build a relationship, and maybe they'll continue to give you discounts and work with you a little bit more in the future on pricing. So this is what you're going to do on how to find where to buy your gold and silver. So how do I like to invest in gold and silver? Pretty simple, maybe not the most favorable strategy to many people, but historically this has probably been one of the most consistent ways to invest. So what I like to do is dollar cost average. So instead of buying a bunch of an investment like gold or silver all at once, like $10,000, $20,000 at once, what I'll do instead is maybe I'll buy a little bit, a decent amount up front, but then I'll spread it out over a monthly period. So I actually have on like a Google Calendar, on a certain date every month, I go to the coin shop and I spend X amount of dollars on gold or silver, whichever one based on the ratio that I want to buy. Currently, it's still silver. So I'll spend, let's say, $500 a month every single month. January, $500. February, $500. March, $500. And I'll just do that every single month, right? Just like you would do that for like your 401k or whatever, right? Just every single month, just consistently putting the same amount of money in, not paying attention to what the prices are, just investing anyway, because we know that the price of silver and gold historically will always go up, and it's good to own it to preserve your wealth. Okay, so we're not paying attention to whether the price is low, to whether the price is high. We're avoiding emotional contact with our money, and we're just buying it because we know that it's a good investment based on the research and the data. So this is like the gold right here. If this is the golden nugget you've been waiting for, this is the golden nugget. So my investing strategy is the following. As you can see, I like to trade the gold to silver ratio, and that is what I plan on doing. Again, I'm relatively newer at buying gold and silver. I own gold and silver, and I have for many years, but not bullion, like the coins and the bars. So I'm kind of newer to the whole investing side of it. I've owned jewelry, of course, but this is what I do, and this is what I would recommend as well. I mean, again, this isn't financial advice, but this is what I do, okay? This is what I do. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. What I like to do is when the gold to silver ratio is over 90, my number one priority is to buy as much silver as my savings account can hold, right? If I got an extra $1,000 because I did an extra job of work at work or something like that, I will spend that entire $1,000 to buy silver if the gold to silver ratio is over 90. Even if it's above 65, I will do the same exact thing. Now, anything below 64, and so between 32 and 64, I'm either going to be buying silver or gold, depending on which one I believe is going to go up more in terms of percentage. So for me right now, I believe silver is going to perform better than gold again in 2026. So I'm going to continue to buy silver within when gold and silver ratio is between 32 and 65. Okay? Once the gold to silver ratio is below 32, that's when I'm going to start trading a lot of my silver, maybe all of it, maybe not all of it, and getting gold instead, right? If you get silver when the gold to silver ratio is super duper high and the ratio drops down to 30 or 15, that silver just increased so much in value that you can get way more gold than you could have when silver was at 90, 100 on the gold to silver ratio, right? You can get it's like double or triple, maybe even more. So this is my strategy. I buy silver when the gold to silver ratio is above 64. Notice how multiple exclamation points over 90. And then when it's in the green area, I get whichever one I think is going to perform better, silver or gold. And when the gold to silver ratio hits below 32, I'm going to start trading my silver and getting more gold. So this is my prediction for 2026 with gold and silver. What am I predicting? By the end of 2026, I predict that gold will be roughly $6,000 an ounce and silver will be roughly $200 an ounce, making the gold to silver ratio roughly 30-1, meaning 30 ounces of silver can get you 1 ounce of gold. I know it's bold, it's a very bold prediction, but based on everything that I just went over in today's video, to me it seems very evident that it's only a matter of time for silver to hit 200. Maybe gold will be higher, maybe not, but I also think the gold to silver ratio, based on this chart alone, it's definitely shooting for that support when the gold to silver ratio was at 32 in 2011. If you can see on the left side of the screen, right at 2011 it was at 32. I think currently we're heading to that support system right there, to that support line. So 30 to 1, I don't think it's very far-fetched based on how prices have been increasing so far in 2026. So why buying gold and silver makes sense? What does make sense for a lot of people in 2026 is using gold and silver as a portfolio stabilizer. Gold and silver is like buying insurance for your wealth. They hedge against inflation, currency devaluation like the US dollar, market crashes, and geopolitical chaos like wars and all types of geopolitical quote unquote nonsense. If your entire net worth is in stocks, real estate, or cash, adding some precious metals actually will reduce your overall risk. That's the part people don't talk about enough. My final verdict: is it too late to buy gold and silver in 2026? Based on the actual data, the actual trends, and real forecasts, well, technically no, but yes, it still makes sense to buy gold and silver. I should have put no, but yes, it still makes sense to buy gold and silver. Not because prices are low, but because the forces driving prices higher are still in place, right? Everything that I just mentioned in today's video, all of that is going to be here for many years to come. So as long as those driving forces are in place, it's going to be a good time to continue to buy gold and silver. A very good time, a party time. The central bank buying hasn't stopped. Global uncertainty hasn't gone away. Silver supply issues haven't been solved. And major institutions are still raising price targets. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be pullbacks, right? We could see silver tomorrow or on Monday drop back down to 95 or 90. But long term, the odds are still in favor for higher prices, not lower ones. So, with all that being said, if you guys are beginners in the gold and silver investing realm, let's get to stacking. It's time to start investing into some hard investments like gold and silver. And if you did enjoy this extremely detailed presentation, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to my channel. This is a relatively brand new channel, obviously, and I love investing in gold and silver. I've grown, even though I've only been doing it for a handful of months, I've grown to really enjoy the whole community of gold and silver, and just seeing the prices go up and down and seeing what's going on in the, with politics and whatnot, and just holding the gold and silver in my hand. It feels like I own real estate, like a small portion of real estate that actually appreciates even more sometimes, like currently. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found a lot of value. And if you're a beginner, I hope this kind of gives you more insight on whether it's a good idea for you to buy gold or silver in 2026. I honestly don't see myself not buying gold and silver for a very long time. Like, I'm talking years and years and years. I'm going to continue to buy more gold and silver just because I know if it's in the Bible, it's good for us, right? It's good for God's people to get gold and silver. So please subscribe, like the video, share it with a friend, family member, coworker, and make sure you leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on the video, and let me know what you are planning on doing with your investment strategy moving forward. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. God bless, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.